you're a parent and wondering if your son is depressed, you will be surprised about what a potential root cause of his depression could be. Hi, I'm Richie and I'm a mental health counselor, couples and family therapist, and today I'm going to show you what inheritance depression is and how you can support your son and your family on getting better. Okay, so what is inheritance depression? So inheritance depression is something that is passed on from generation to generation. And if you're a parent right now, I want you to ask yourself a question, especially if you're a dad. I want you to ask yourself, what was my father like or my mother like when I was younger? How were they around the house? Was your dad walled off? Did he isolate? Did he not? Was he really quiet? Okay. And same thing with mom. But this video today is going to focus on typically dads, but I want moms here to, to be thinking about that. So how this depression, it passes on from generation to generation. And we really are not aware of it. We're not aware of it, and neither are our children. And what happens is we think we're smart. We think we're holding it in, and nobody knows about it because we are so amazing at what we do. And unfortunately, we're not so amazing at it. Okay. So there's two types of depression that our fathers typically have. The first type is the type I was just talking about, which is covert. And this is behind the scenes depression. Things that they think they're hiding it, but they're really not. A dad that's moping around the house, a dad that's angry. These are some of the signs. Moping around the house, angry, short-fused, no patience, and then it could begin to go to being quiet, withdrawn, and walled off is my big one. A lot of men these days, and I talk about in other videos, they are walled off. That means that they don't share their feelings because we have to be strong men, which is a bunch of horseshit. Okay? So in my couples and family therapy, I teach men how to be vulnerable, how to show emotions. I take a little chip, and what I tell them, I give them an upgrade because we snap the chip in and they start having emotions. So getting back to the depression, so somebody that's walled off, quiet, withdrawn, and not engaged with family a lot. I see this in a lot of families where mom will be doing all these things with the kids and dad is like, oh, I got to do work around the house, or I got to go to work. And those could be signs of depression. And also another one I want you to be aware of, another sign that dad could be depressed is substance use. Drinking, these days, a lot of legalization of marijuana. So a lot of edibles, a lot of numbing our senses and escaping our reality. So that is, that could be, so those symptoms are, if you're seeing them, that's overt, okay? If dad is just, so covert is hiding and trying to push it down, and what overt is really dramatizing. Typically, you'll see moms with overt depression, a lot of crying in front of the kids, and sometimes dads do it. They'll be just laying on the couch and emotionless and just kind of like, you don't see them cry too much, but dads are just, disconnected, very sad. Okay, just like always, like the energy has been sucked out of them. So there's covert and overt depression. And what children see, they model. So this is so important, especially when I work with couples and they're arguing and fighting. It's like, what do you think the kids are learning from you guys? Okay, so important. And that's the same thing with how we maneuver, because our kids are just watching us. They're going, he did that, she did that, and he did that. When she complains about something, he walks away and runs off. He avoids. He's a conflict avoider. That's a good skill. Maybe I'm going to do that when I get older. And the same thing with emotions. So if mom is, moping around, or dad is like going hides, go and close the door, dad goes into the garage, or dad goes into the basement, what the child is learning is child's learning when we feel emotions or when we feel something, we look upset or we fight, we go and withdraw. We take our emotions, we bottle them up, and we go hide. Okay? So that's modeling. So that's what a lot of children do. They model what they see. Okay? So if you are depressed as a dad, if your dad was depressed, what you are doing is you are passing it down to your son. Okay? My own dad took me a long time to figure this out. I think I just figured it out a couple of years ago. So growing up for me, dad had a lot of anger. Dad would, him and my mom would fight a lot of domestic violence, unfortunately. Just thinking about it just takes me back. A lot of throwing things, a lot of name calling, verbal, physical aggression. And my dad, a lot of the time he would just mope. And the only time he wasn't moping when he was drinking or smoking pot. And he was verbally abusive to us. And what he was doing is he was taking out his depression. It came out of him like an anger and projection. So he would project it on us because we weren't good enough. We didn't meet his expectations for children. We were overweight and we didn't do this with X, Y, and Z. But my dad was depressed. So what he did was he gave me that I inherited his depression. I never knew this, never knew it. So when my kids were younger, I found myself just like angry, closed off a lot. And I wish I had an opportunity to do it over again. And that's why I do stuff like this, to help families like you guys. So what I learned is that I never knew why I was so angry when I was younger. It was the weirdest thing. When I got into my 40s, my 50s, and then I started doing this stuff, it's like, wow, I was depressed. But we never admit it, right? If you're a dad watching this, the first thing we don't do is we don't admit to depression. Some men will admit to anxiety, but depression is one of those things. Nope, I'm not depressed. Nope, okay. So I wait for it. I wait for them to get to a point where they finally admit it in sessions, okay? Because that's really important that if you're a dad out there and you don't think you're depressed, but you are any of those signs or symptoms, they're there, or if you're a mom watching this or a wife and you see those things, this needs to be addressed, okay? Because what's at stake, Dad, what's at stake is it's not your ego, okay? It's the child that you brought into this world, okay? They're the ones that are going to suffer. They're the ones that are going to carry that cross or carry that burden throughout life if you don't start making some changes, okay? And what I think is, so let's talk about your son. So you must have a son if you're watching this. So these are some of the symptoms that you will see that you may be attributing it to something else. And I feel through my work that most children, when they get into those 12, 13-year-old times, parents want to classify this as teenage years, and there's a small amount of truth to that. But what I see is I work on the environment, because typically when kids start acting out and doing things that you would never think they would do, it's typically there's something going on in their world that they can't figure out. They don't have the words to put around it. So it comes out as behaviors. It comes out as like doing things that you would never realize they would ever do in a million years. It's like, why are they doing that? What they're doing is they're trying to send you a message. They don't have the words to say, I'm struggling with these feelings of depression, because who do they see growing up? Okay? Or I'm struggling with something at school, and a big part of it, they want to make us proud. So they hold it in, but then that stuff has to come up, so it comes out in behaviors. So if you see your son with a lot of anger, this is a big one, hanging out with the wrong crowd, because typically those wrong crowd kids, he sees something that he's got in common with, and it's probably something happening at home. So they kind of bond over that. Isolating, a lot of time in the room. Johnny doesn't eat dinner with us anymore. Johnny spends a lot of time in his room playing video games. If there's substances, if they're vaping, smoking weed, if they're drinking, excessive phone use, addicted to video games. And I think you're always worried about what is going on in his mind. And that's kind of, as a parent, we struggle with that. I struggle with that for my boys, when they were younger. It was debilitating. It's like this stress, this anxiety that I want to know what they're thinking, and they're not going to tell us what they're thinking, because if they have a father like I was, that was walled off, didn't talk about his emotions, what did they see? Well, they're going to do the same thing, okay? So here's what you need to do. Dad or mom, whoever's watching this, Dad, I want you to reflect upon what your dad was like. Okay? Take a few moments, jot them down. What was your dad like? Was he angry, walled off? Was he happy? Okay? And if that was the case, what was mom like? So I want to start help you make the connection from the past to the present to see where you possibly got your depression from. And big thing here, get into therapy. Okay? I have so many guys come into therapy for me, and I love it because the stigma, I think, is getting sucked out of it. So if you're a dad, you can't fix yourself. Okay? When I lost my son 9 years ago, I thought I could fix myself. For 2 years, I thought I could fix myself. Nope, didn't happen. It came out in a lot of drinking, a lot of anger, and a lot of rage. And it was so, so toxic for me. And I couldn't fix myself until my doctor said one day, he's like, I had some road rage going on and it was terrible. And she goes, Rich, you need to talk to somebody. So after I did that, my life changed. I got better. So you can't fix yourself. A strong man can go and get help and admit that he needs help. And that's totally cool. Okay? So get into therapy, and then for your son, start with family therapy. Do not drop him off at the therapist office and say the therapist is going to fix him. Not going to happen. I do not allow that to happen. I tell my parents when I work with them, I want to work with the family. There will be times when I sit with the child one-on-one. And this is a point I missed this. So if you have a child between the ages of, up to like 11 years old, there's a lot of work that could be done. It's not hopeless. And it's not hopeless if they're over that, but it's easier if they're under 10. So if dad's depressed, it's easier to start doing this work now, okay? Because when they start turning 12 or 13, that's where I start seeing the shift, okay? And the work becomes harder because up to the age of 11, 12 years old, 11, that we have this sphere of influence, what means we can control a lot of stuff, right? But after that, they start wanting to find their independence, and our sphere of influence kind of gets dissipated and gets smaller and smaller as they transition to 12 and 13 and then onwards. And then there's a point there where we have absolutely zero control. They know that we do have no control over them, and they make us pay for it. So the work becomes harder after age 13, 12, 13. So if they're under 10, okay. So family therapy via son, start with that. And if you have a therapist, you should be working as a first two sessions maybe should be just mom, dad, or whoever the parents are with the therapist, and start getting a feel for it. Next session should maybe bring the kid in and the therapist should spend some time with the kids and talk to him about what's going on. And then it should be family therapy going forward and a little bit of individual therapy for your son. Because most boys that I work with, they don't want to say squat. Walled off, just like who? Dad. Okay, another thing you can do for your son, you're going to meet him where he's at. He may be walled off, but that's all right. You have to meet him where he's at. Don't be suffocating with questions. I know your anxiety is like tremendous, like I want to know what's going on, but don't suffocate him with questions. You will only push him away. Okay, the biggest challenge we had, and I did the same thing when I was younger, when I was, a younger parent, my kids would come home from school, how's your day? What'd you do? You have any homework? And it was like one question after another, and it's exhausting. Do you want to talk about work when you get home from work? No. So meet them where they're at, and that means talk about things that they want to talk about, whether it's video games, sports. What interests them needs to interest you. That's how you build a connection to them. That's how they eventually, hopefully, open up. And if they do open up, you validate the hell out of whatever's coming out of their mouth. You never, ever judge them, okay? Validate them. Okay, that's it. I am done. This is it for this video. So for dads out there, this is the one question I had for you. With your depression, you can either pass it back to where it came from and stop the inheritance, or you can pass it forward to your son, and then he'll pass it on to his son. So you have the opportunity to break the cycle today. If you like this video, like it. If you have any comments, if you got questions for me, put them in the thing. It's like, I would like somebody to comment on one of my videos, but whatever. If you like the channel, like it. It's all good. Subscribe. All good. This is Rich. I'll see you later. Bye.